Hey guys, I'm Layla. Welcome to raidlore Stories. Today's lore story is going to be for Gnishak Verminlord, who was a fragment champ, I believe, right? Still a really good champ that we had in the game, and I hope you guys enjoy his lore story. The saga of the Verminlord and the Breaker has become a staple in every alehouse and bard's college across Teleria. The truth of the story is thus all the more obscure and buried in one of the darkest chapters in the history of the free city of Arnak. In the age of treachery, the rate of skinwalker awakenings exploded, and the resulting turmoil nearly ended the history of Karok before it began. The period suffers from a lack of hard historical evidence and first-hand accounts, as is so often the case in times of great crisis. Few had time to record the ravages unfolding around them, and fewer still possessed the will to honestly and accurately describe the gruesome truths. In the case of Gnishak, it is indisputable that a noble prince became a monstrous menace. But the house of his provenance, his lineage or surviving relations, his siblings, his issue, all go historically unrecorded. This is highly unusual for a nobleman of Karok. Even in periods of great upheaval, they were and are careful to preserve such information, for it is the source of much of their legitimacy and thus their power. This suggests the relevant information was purged deliberately, perhaps to protect the dignity of those related to the fallen Skinwalker prince. This omission allowed the Verminlord to become iconic, a stand-in for every corrupt and petty overlord who lacked empathy for lesser beings, making the story all the more popular as it spread. In the tale, Gnishak casually kills a rat underfoot and is cursed by its vengeful spirit. Many hearers wished similar vengeance upon one lord or another. Some felt as if they were the rats in the story themselves, or their friends or relatives, all feeling crushed under a noble boot. After his transformation, Gnishak disappeared into the sewers and quietly grew his festering power in the depths for 13 long years. Out of sight and out of mind, as more overt skinwalkers wrought havoc above. Gnishak cultivated mastery over the swarms of rats he would have once disdained. Another tale of a deadly rat man, the wandering killer Snicktrack, who also attracted and exploited a swarm of rats, is often conflated with the Verminlord narrative. But where Snicktrack was an impoverished peasant who killed rats to make ends meet, Gnishak was a petty princeling who killed casually while dreaming of greatness. Correspondingly, where Snicktrack's horde was a crawling, chaotic manifestation of their master's torment and madness. The legendary swarm of the Verminlord was an army of soldiers wielded by a mad monarch. Gnishak coveted the vast domains and legions of followers he always felt he deserved, and he carefully directed his growing rat army to gnaw out a vast and penetrable lair for him, enlarge and augmented swathes of the sewers of Arnak into his personal castle. He even dressed his bloated, hairy form in the fine clothing he had taken with him after his flight, and had new and hideous adornments made for him to match his delusional new title of lordship. Then, when the time was right, and all of Arnak was gathering dense crowds to celebrate the holy lights of the Yuletide festival, Gnishak unleashed a long-plotted attack of terror against the surface world. Boiling up from the grates and dripping hose pipes, pouring from every opening of building after building as each was overturned. The rat tide he unleashed was hideous to behold, all the more so for the vile pestilence that coursed in their diseased veins. Each one was laden with grotesque pustules that spread a pox, the likes of which no healer on the face of Teleria had ever witnessed. Had Gnishak found a way to manipulate the forces of plague and pestilence, or had the virus simply developed within his swarm of his own? No one knows for sure, though it was said that the plague had a fell tenacity and almost living will as it racked its victims. Most folk believe the Verminlord's plague originated with the Verminlord himself, and that he poured into it all his malice and spite and urge to debase all that was upright and wholesome. No remedy, whether poultice or potion or purifying magic, could do more than slow a victim's doom and prolong the agony. There could only be one solution, the eradication of the swarm and its terrible source alike. As brave citizens battled the rats with torches, spears, and bullwhips, one spotted the Rat King himself returning to his subterranean lair after a brief sortie. This man, a professional rat catcher and many tellings of the tale, presented this evidence to Arnak's castle of burghers, who were aghast to learn that Gnishak had been lurking below their feet all along. This set the stage for the rise of Mjahad the Breaker. Wow, what an interesting story. Now, initially, when Gnishak first came out, he did somewhat have kind of a shared story with Mjahad the Breaker, the Nutcracker, basically, right? So I like how they tied that in. And they also tied in Snicktrack, who I did do a lore story for as well, guys, on this channel. Drop me some comments down below what you think for the lore story for Gnishak, and thanks so much for watching.